The 68 Camaro is back in the shop, and this time, Sam's installing a new chrome alternator from Tuff Stuff. The higher amperage alternator will provide plenty of charging power for this muscle car.
Today we're going to be talking alternators. Now these old cars, a lot of them came with generators, and when they fail, the idiot light on the dash corresponds with the component. But the newer cars, let's say anywhere from mid-70s on, the alternator, when it failed, the idiot light on the inside of the dash showed a battery symbol. So a lot of people still today think that when the battery symbol comes on the dashboard, their battery is bad, when really you need to be checking the charging system. So in our case, our charging system was fine. We're going to be continuing our theme with Tuff Stuff by replacing all the components. I've decided to go with a chrome one-wire alternator. Now they also have factory cast, and they have satin black. They also have 80 amp, 100 amp, and 140 amp alternator. Ours is 140 amp. Now, I went with the one-wire alternator, but they also have the standard alternator that uses the external regulator. In our case, we're going to be not using it, so I am going to replace all the wires. The factory wire that went from the heavy pull from the alternator to the regulator was very small because the original alternator was only at 60 amps. So we want to make sure to put a much bigger, about a 4 or 8 gauge wire from the alternator going to the battery to handle the 140 amps that we're drawing from it. Now, if you guys are going down the road and let's say the light on your dash doesn't come on to let you know that the charging system is failing, you always want to pay attention to the lights on your car when they start to dim. If you turn your flasher on and your headlights or the lights start to dim each time that flasher comes on, then you know you got a problem with your charging system. The alternator and generators can fail without indicating on the dash, so when that happens, you want to check it. Another sign of a charging system failing on you is when you crank the car and it cranks slow on you. Now, it could be a dead battery, but if your battery is within 2 or 3 years old, then you want to check the charging system, making sure that it's not lying to you by not charging and also not indicating it on the dashboard. So in a case like this, when there is a painted block, a lot of these old cars are popular with painting the engine block. Well, that'll cause a problem when it comes to the ground. The ground alternators go through the body of the component. That's why on Tuff Stuff, they actually add a ground pole on the body so that when you have a case like this where it's chrome, the ground circuit is not going to travel through the finish. So you add a ground wire here and that'll create the circuit needed to activate the regulator inside. If you don't do that, let's say you're doing a regular factory alternator, you want to scrape the orange paint off the block and you want to scrape any paint that's on the mounting points of the alternator itself, just so that you have a good ground and everything's going to work properly for you. I've already removed my old alternator. I'm going to go ahead and install the new one. Anytime you guys can replace your hardware, it's always a good idea to do so, especially if it's from 1960. Okay, so now what we're going to do is run our wires. Now what I'm going to do is make me a ground wire, and if you notice, it's the same thickness as my power wire, both being 6 gauge. And the reason being is your ground is only as good as your voltage, so I'd like to size them the same. Now this is red. What I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a heat shrink over it, turning it into black so that people will know if there's someone else working on the car that this is a ground wire. Okay, I got all my grounds and wires installed. The ground strap, I went ahead and utilized the bolt that the battery ground is at, cleaning it off first, and I got my power wire. Now I'm going to put on a belt. I am going to go get new belts, but before I do, I want to show you guys how to adjust the belt properly if you don't have a serpentine system. Put the belt on, get yourself something to pry with, and you want to give it about a ½ inch of adjustment when you press down on the belt. Now you have to remember that if you have a new belt, that new belt's going to stretch a little bit as it breaks in. So you want to make it a little bit tighter, or you want to go back in 100 or 200 miles and double check the tension of the belt. Now all I got to do is reinstall the radiator and battery, and we're good to go.